Wow! What's happening, everybody? Yes, sir. It's your boy. We back. Lord, listen, I can't stop smiling because I got somebody on the podcast today with me, and we already been having a great time even before we started this podcast with you guys on today. Let me just share something with you. Go get you some notebook, a pen, a paper, a pencil, or something to take notes on today. I got somebody special in the building. So for all of you that don't know, my name is Stanley Doucette, and I am your host for Let's Talk with Stanley Doucette. It is going to be absolutely electric today. As you can see, both of us are smiling, we laughing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Even before we started at 2 o'clock today, we've been laughing and cutting up already. All I can do is say, I hope y'all ready. I hope y'all ready. Look, and let me just tell y'all, ladies and men, my little brother is handsome. Y'all leave him alone. Y'all leave him alone. Leave him alone.
Cut it out, Stanley. Cut it out.
Leave him alone. Listen, guys, y'all know how we do it. We got a special topic today, and I'm going to introduce my little brother in a second, but let me just share this with you guys. Go to all of our podcasts, I'm going to say podcasts, but all of our social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, my YouTube channel. Listen, the YouTube channel, y'all see our faces. Now, I don't know if I should say that. Y'all going to want to go there and be nosy. Look, we have a great time all the way around. But what I wanted to do today, I know we always talking about empowering people, but we want to take it to another level. There are so many people out there that suffer in silence on so many different things. But what I wanted to do today is kind of bring that into the forefront and start talk about domestic violence, right? Now, most people be like, oh my God, domestic violence, and you want to turn the TV off or you want to turn the channel off. Listen, I'm talking specifically to you, that one that have had domestic violence or been in that situation, whether you've been a victim, a perpetrator, or a subject of a witness, it doesn't matter. You need to stay today to listen to this podcast. Now, not only I would have a commercial, but I want to dive into this because I think this is powerful. I think this is powerful. Listen, for all of you guys that don't know, I'm about to introduce to you and present to others a young man that is absolutely impeccable. You know, I was listening to something the other day and we were talking and I heard him presenting and it was just a little taste. It was just a little taste. And he began dropping not just nuggets, jewels, diamonds, watches, Rolexes, Bentleys. I mean, he was dropping bombs on them, and it was just for a moment. Well, inside of that moment, you know, obviously you got to come on the podcast, little bro. You got to come kick it with the fam on the podcast.
No, I had to.
So listen, for all of you guys that don't know, my special guest today is my little brother, Mr. Rashad. I ain't gonna say his middle name. Y'all don't need to know that. Y'all getting too personal now. But Rashad Perry, he is actually a violence prevention educator in the state of Florida. I'm not gonna go too deep because some of y'all knows it, right? Some of y'all knows he got his bachelor's degree in criminology. He got his his master's, a minor in psychology. So yeah, he heavy at the top. He's a powerful individual. But most importantly, this is what I love about him. His mindset is powerful. He is not somebody to play with, but also he gives it how you need to have it. So listen, guys, without further ado, y'all help welcome to the podcast. Let's Talk with Stanley Doucette, my man, my little brother. Yes. Little brother himself, Mr. Perry. Rich, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
What's going on, Stanley? What's going on, everybody? And thank you, Stanley, for having me on the platform, man. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you for that introduction. You definitely spoke highly of me, and I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to talk to you, have a good conversation. We're going to tackle a lot of things that people in your audience definitely need to hear, men, women, youth, people's cousins, sisters, aunties, uncles, whoever it is involved, and whoever's listening. So I look forward to it. So we could jump right into it.
Yes, sir. Well, hold on. You look a little nervous. Now, hold on for the audience. Hold on. Now, listen, we're a little thrown off on Let's Talk. You know, I'm a little thrown off. You got to bring it down. Man, chill. It's just our audience out there. Man, chill. We got this, man. Listen, if y'all out there, look at the YouTube channel. He blushing. He turning up.
You would think I would have enough public experience not to get nervous, but like I said before we started this thing, sometimes the pre nervousness sets in a little bit, but it'll
Man,
go away.
you know
Give it like
something.
2 minutes. It'll fade. Shit.
Okay, good. Let me make you more nervous. Let me just make you a little bit more nervous, right?
Yes,
We in
sir.
over 170 plus countries, and I
Okay.
got an email today from somebody from Norway, right? I'm not going to go into their names and all of that stuff. And you normally doing it. You don't really think that you touching people's lives in different parts of the world, right? And when you start getting these emails and these messages and all that stuff, it actually does your heart well. So what I wanted to do, because I shared with you offline what I thought of you and who I think you are. Let me publicly just allow you to share with you who is Rashad Perry. Share with the world who you really are.
Absolutely. Hey man, I feel I'm just a man in this world that's trying to find my way, you know what I mean? Trying to educate myself and learn day in and day out, and share the message and everything from my own personal experience in life, from stories that I hear from other people, and just really just collect information, grow, and help share a message of healing, of deep healing that needs to happen within the minds and hearts and souls of men, mainly, you know what I'm saying, but also women, you know what I'm saying, and youth, because a lot of times we don't have the proper guidance in this world of who we need to be, you know what I'm saying, to make a change and who we need to become. So I'm just a person that, you know what I'm saying, as transparent as possible, you know what I'm saying, a person that has his flaws, you know what I mean, but is always
Yeah.
willing to learn and grow, and try my best to put that ego aside that sometimes gets in our way as human beings. But you know what I'm saying, it's a daily challenge, but it's a progression nonetheless.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So well stated. But let me read something because you're shy. But let me just read something I thought was powerful. My
Yes, sir.
main mission in life is to be a stakeholder and catalyst of positive change in any community that you're a part of. So with that being said, I know you had some extensive work, whether it's doing in a maximum security prison or just locally, right? So let's touch into that for a second as we were talking about you leading into domestic violence. So how did you get into that, and how did the maximum security system kind of play into that? Because both of us had that law enforcement experience side. So how did that actually play into how did you get to domestic violence advocacy?
Oh, great question. So it happened during my undergraduate years. I attended the University of South Florida, located in Tampa, Florida. Shouts out to Tampa, all my people out there. And I ended up coming across thinking back to like when I was a child. I've always been interested in the element of crime
Okay.
in our society and why what the source of it is and why it creates itself. So once I got to college and I picked criminology as my major, which is the study of crime,
Right.
I was interested in both levels of it: who perpetrates the crime, who commits the acts of crime, and who the crime affects. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I
Yes.
got in, I started working as a peer educator on campus, where I would have public speaking events and go into local organizations, classrooms, and faculty and staff, and basically teaching about the elements of domestic violence and sexual assault, because they're two different crimes. They can be incorporated together, and they both share a common source of reason as to why people commit them. And raising that awareness and just that overall learning experience from working with people that were victims and then also perpetrators, it helped me blend together a nice experience of working with both sides of the spectrum on that angle. And I've always, again, I know mass incarceration is a huge issue in our country, you know what I'm saying? And we could get into that topic as well a little bit, but just working in that maximum security prison, I also believe that when people make a decision and do something that is overall deemed bad by society, I believe in the redemption story. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
believe
Yes.
that a lot of times people come from communities where certain things are normalized, and they need an opportunity for change. And I witnessed that with a lot of people that I work with in the prison, where they were locked down for decades, you know what I'm saying? And I felt personally that they should be given a second chance and be brought into society. So a lot of the work that I was doing was teaching social reintegration classes to those inmates in the prison setting. And just
Hold on,
working with.
Rashad, just 1 second, because I
Yes,
don't
sir.
want you to pass through that for
Right.
the family that's out there.
Right.
Social reintegration,
Yes.
right? I know what it is, you know what it is, but just for those that may not know, yeah,
Mhm.
could you touch on that? Because I want them to not just hear us talking and brothers conversing, but also hearing it so they can understand it at a deeper level, what all of this really means leading into domestic violence, right? So if
Yeah.
you don't mind sharing that.
No problem at all. So social reintegration, if you've never been locked down before, I mean, I've never been to jail. I don't know what it's like from a personal experience, right? But I have people in my family that have, you know what I'm saying?
Me
And
too. Me too.
I've had personal, and you probably can relate to this as well. When somebody goes into prison or jail and is there for, like, we could say 2, 3, 5 years, when they come out, the society is a completely different place. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And the rate in which our society is moving today is so fast that often coming back into that space and trying to get acclimated is nearly impossible. A lot of
Yeah.
people feel so much more comfortable being locked up, and it sounds like a crazy concept, but they really do need help, and they need resources to help them acclimate better into a society that they may have been completely different from when they got locked down in the first place. You know what I'm saying? It may not look the same. So a lot of those social reintegration classes were teaching like life skills. So how to like develop a resume, how to conduct a job interview so you can sustain yourself going back into society. Because if you get locked down for a gun charge or for drugs, you know what I'm saying? And the way that you was moving in that lifestyle was how you sustain yourself. When you get out and you don't have any skills, you're more likely to walk right back into that same line of what you were doing, you know what I'm saying, in order to just survive, you know what I'm saying, which is a
That's
lot of
right.
times the reason why people commit crimes is based out of survival. It's not the only source or reason for it, but it does come from that space.
Yeah, that's good, man. And first of all, let me just say thank you for on behalf of people that don't even know to say thank you, with helping those individuals get those skills and skill sets and be able to go into society to be able to be productive, right? Even if it's to start their own business, right? A pencil sharpening business, it doesn't matter, right?
Mhm.
Now they have their own. So I want to just say thank you for what you did on that. Now, as we interchange or get to this intersection and began communing with domestic violence, how did that incorporation or mass incorporation move into? Matter of fact, before I ask that question, tell us what domestic violence really is.
Okay. Well, domestic violence, I'm going to give you the definition from a legal standpoint, and then I'm going to give you my own definition
Okay, okay,
experience working with it. And it's the same, but my own definition incorporates other elements as well. But so right now I reside in Florida. I work in the state of Florida, in one of the counties. And the way that the statute is set up in Florida basically describes the domestic violence as being assault, aggravated battery, false imprisonment, or any criminal offense resulting in physical injury or death of one household family member or somebody that they're in a relationship with, right? So from that standpoint, you think of domestic violence, and a lot of people think of domestic violence as just somebody putting their hands on them. So like a
right,
battery, you know what I'm saying? Whether that be with their fists or whether it be with a weapon, there's a physical element behind that definition. And a lot of times that is the standard that needs to be proven in order for a charge to happen in domestic violence.
that's right.
However, on a larger scale, and if we're going to get into like a real conversation around what domestic violence actually is, it incorporates, so the first part I said was physical abuse, but it also incorporates psychological and emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, financial and economic abuse,
Oh,
and digital abuse, to be honest with you. So there's like a 6-layer tier of what domestic violence is. And a lot of people may only experience 1 or 2 of those things, and you can't bring that to a court of law and get services or get help trying to navigate your way through that type of relationship. So it's a very complex issue, but it does incorporate different elements of abuse. And the overall root of the issue of domestic violence is somebody showing a pattern and tactics of pattern behavior to gain power and control over the person that they're trying to abuse.
Power and control. That's what it
Yeah.
seemed like. So when some of these politicians out here doing crazy stuff, sometimes I feel like it's domestic violence.
It is. Yeah, no, it is. It definitely is. And that needs to be checked as
So
well.
so with that in that, right? And I'm just playing because I don't want Congress to come. It's a joke, y'all. Lord.
You don't need the feds knocking on your door.
Right.
Stanley.
You know, it's a joke, y'all. It's a joke. But inside of that, right? So we're talking about domestic violence and what happens to that individual, whether it's a male, whether it's a female, whether it's LBGQ plus, or whether it's somebody that's straight, right? What is the emotional impact of all of that, man? What like let's really get into it because I think a lot of times people skirt over it. But what's the really emotional impact of that from the kids to the parents? You know, what if your daughter or your son is in this? How is that impacting people?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question. That's a powerful question. And like I was mentioning earlier, I listened to your podcast with the woman that you had, the licensed therapist that was talking about trauma in the community. And domestic violence really does have a trauma-based impact on the person's mental health. Like she said in that episode, everybody experiences trauma differently, you know what I'm saying? And everybody's able to cope with things differently. But a common theme that happens when somebody does experience domestic violence, whether it be by a partner or not, is usually a distrust overall in human behavior in their relationships. You know what I'm saying? And it creates a heightened sense of anxiety and hypervigilance because your safety is threatened. You know what I'm saying? If you've ever been in any type of experience where your safety is not intact, you know that fight or flight response that kicks on in your mind and your brain and it becomes activated, and it's hard to be able to function and think clearly working from that experience or even having that experience in the back of your mind. And like I said before, it's a pattern behavior. So if somebody experiences domestic violence one time, that can be enough, but imagine if it happens every week, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times those domestic violence situations occur in a cycle, you know what I'm saying? It's like the person will experience abuse, and then the other person will be forgiving of it, apologize, say it'll never happen again, you know what I'm saying? And even go through this period of like gift giving or trying to butter them up, you know what I'm saying? And then as soon as that is over, they'll repeat the cycle again, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of people sometimes get caught up in that cycle of the abuse. And it's hard to see clearly when you're in that, because if you're talking about domestic violence on a psychological and emotional level, those are invisible wounds. You know what I'm saying? And somebody can gaslight you and psychologically manipulate you to a point where you can't even see what you're experiencing, and you don't know until you step back, you know what I'm saying, and take a step back from that experience.
Man, that's deep. So you're talking anybody can actually, I'll just say lack of words, go through some level of domestic violence, whether it's a victim, a perpetrator, or somebody just watching. So what would be some, I guess I'll say, warning signs for those individuals so they can understand what that really is?
Yes, sir. So actually, you said something that's very important. Everybody can be a victim or survivor of domestic violence, men included. You know what I mean? I do know that domestic violence in general is gender-based violence. So the main perpetrators of domestic violence are men. You know what I'm saying? And we can't ignore that fact. And it speaks to something around the culture of the way that we're socialized as individuals and men that create that. But anybody can be a victim of domestic violence. Some of the warning signs that it entails is usually it's a heightened level of possessiveness that the perpetrator has over the individual, right? So in order for somebody to want to be interested in gaining power and control over another person, they have to view that person as an object. So it's objectification and possessiveness. I would label that as a warning sign of domestic violence or abuse. Another one would be extreme jealousy. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times people get this one mixed up because
say that
it's like,
again. Wait, you got to say that again. Extreme jealousy. Go ahead.
Extreme jealousy. It's a real one, right? And a lot of times, again, jealousy is a human emotion. So we'd be fooling ourselves to say that at no point in our lives nobody has ever felt jealousy, right? But when it gets extreme to the point where somebody doesn't have control over it and tries to blame you for, oh, you're doing that. Why is this person talking to you? Why is that? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of levels of, again, and I think a lot of that is rooted in possessiveness, but I would label extreme jealousy over it. And just because somebody is jealous of you doesn't mean that they care. You know what I'm saying? A lot of
Right.
times people get that mixed up. It's like, oh, if he's jealous of me, he must care about me. He cares of what I'm doing, what I'm not doing. But in reality, it's not. In the way that he's expressing it is not healthy overall. So
Rashad, you talking about extreme jealousy, not jealousy,
yeah,
possessive, right? Being
yes,
possessive, being possessive, and jealous, and all of those things going into it. And isn't the victim sometimes tricking their mind to say just what you said? Oh, he loves me or she loves me. That's why they're so jealous, or whatever. Is that
yeah.
true in some of the cases that you see?
Absolutely. A lot of times people, and this isn't a play. There's a word called victim blaming, right? And this
Yeah.
isn't a form of victim blaming, but it explains, like, people justify the reasons as to why they're with someone and why they'll continue to be with somebody and overlook certain things, right?
Mm.
So
So
jealousy can,
wait, hold on,
yeah.
wait. You touching so many things. It's just like my
I know,
mind
yeah.
is.
It's going. We're going in different avenues, and we'll open up a lot of
So
can of
wait,
worms.
inside of that, remember we got to talk about relationships too. But
Right.
go ahead,
Yeah,
finish your
yeah.
thought.
People will justify things, right? If you want to, if you're with somebody that you love and care about, you know what I'm saying? And again, we all have flaws, but there's certain things that need to be paid attention to.
Yes.
I believe truly, and overlooking unhealthy behaviors isn't beneficial for anybody. You know what I'm saying? I think they do need to be addressed by the person that's experiencing it and by the person that's perpetrating it and committing the offensive or abusive acts, right? But yeah, like I said, people a lot of times do create a justification for why they'll remain with somebody. You know what I'm saying? And I think that needs to be checked.
Man, that's amazing. But let me ask this. Why do you think sometimes the victim actually stays with the perpetrator or actually go back to the perpetrator?
Yeah. So there's reasons for that. You know what I mean? And one of my biggest ones, right? Because a lot of times too, when somebody's experiencing domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
family and friends and people around them will be like, why don't you just leave them? Why don't you just go? Why don't you just leave the relationship or get out of the relationship? Why do you continue to go back? Right. And I think there's a lot of areas that become, it's hard for somebody to experience or understand it unless they're inside of it, inside of that type of relationship.
Yes.
But when we look at lethality, right, and the risk of somebody losing their life in a domestic violence relationship, it occurs usually when that person makes that decision to leave the relationship, right? So if you have somebody that is experiencing domestic violence and they're in fear for their safety, a lot of times people go back for their safety. You think the most healthy thing would be to leave, right? But if you do have natural love and care for an individual, right, which is impossible to just disconnect yourself and stop loving somebody, um I think it's hard for sometimes people to balance out that scale of how they deserve to be treated as an individual
Mm-hmm.
and the love and the care. You know what I'm saying? People are aware
Yeah.
that they're not being treated in the way that they need to, but sometimes the love and the care that they may have for that person overlooks it. And a lot of times, and we'll get deeper into this, women in our society are told that they have to be the nurturing caretaker and fix the issues of men, right? And if
Yes.
you have a woman in a domestic violence relationship that believes that I can change him versus it's his responsibility to change himself, then at a subconscious level, I believe that they're still working from that place of like, oh, he's being violent because of this, but he can change, right? He's told me he can change, but he's not doing any of the acts or committing himself to the actual change that needs to happen for that abuse to stop occurring.
Right. So inside of that, let me think. This is what something that happened when I was on the police department. So the family know back in yesteryear, I used to be a police officer.
Yeah.
Here is something that there's a lot of activity that happened around domestic violence. So I remember one specific case where was speaking to the young lady, right? And I'm gonna say it in this way so everybody would understand. I want to describe the young lady. She was absolutely flawless. I mean, gorgeous, right? And everybody was trying to understand why she kept going back to this guy. Just couldn't understand it. And believe it or not, one day, just by I say by happenstance, but I don't believe in accidents. She bumped into me and she saw me. She was like, "Oh, hey, detective, how you doing?" I said, "I'm good. How are you?" She said, "I'm good." And she said, "I couldn't talk to you the other day because too many eyes were around." She said, "Let me tell you why I go back." And I was like, "Oh, okay." You kind of, you're in a grocery store, so you're not thinking
Yeah.
police. You like, okay. She said, "I literally go back because of two reasons." I said, "Okay." She said, "One is for my child." I said, "Okay, okay." She said, "I would prefer to stay and not allow my child to go and deal with whatever foolishness he's going to put up to scar her for life. And I would just stay." And the other reason, believe it or not, was the protection side. And it was a protection from us, and literally said this to me. I mean, standing in the grave. Some of y'all in New Orleans, y'all know Uptown Carrollton, where they had that what is it, Canal Villery, right? I'm talking about New Orleans, right? So
Yep.
y'all
Yep.
know Uptown and Carrollton. Y'all know where it used to be. I was talking to this lady and she was articulating this, right? So when she said it, I was like, okay. The other one was for protection. I said, I personally don't get it, but I know how much you love your daughter. So I know you're not literally going to, do something crazy. I said, but my question was, how do you get out? And she looked me right in my eyes. She said, "Detective, I don't even know. But I do know, as long as my child is secure and we have a little bit of safety, and if all I got to do every now and again is maybe have sex with him to make him happy, or rub his head, or we go to the movies or something like that to make him feel good." So I was confused, to be honest with you, right?
Yep.
Because I wasn't in it.
Right.
So talk to me in that case. I'm Uptown New Orleans, all right? So help me understand that, because I was confused.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that story, because I think it pokes some truth into what we're talking about and the reasons why a lot of times it's hard for a survivor or a victim of domestic abuse to ultimately leave the person that's abusing them. And it makes it even a little bit more complicated when a child is involved, right? Because you asked the question earlier, how does it affect children?
Mm-hmm.
Children naturally come into this world and they need both caregivers, right?
Yes.
And they can interpret and understand a situation or a household dynamic that may not be healthy for them. But if mom or dad is abusing mom, that doesn't mean that they still don't need dad anymore there. You know what I mean? They still
Mm-hmm.
need dad present. And a lot of times moms are aware of that. So not only is mom experiencing the abuse and the burden of that, she's also experiencing the burden of, how do I hold this family together, right? And
Yes.
that's really the crime that exists in a lot of domestic violence households. Like, if men are supposed to be leaders in the family and you're making your household unsafe to live in and uninhabitable, you now put the burden of responsibility on the woman to experience and try to hold things together. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard for somebody to do that. And the other aspect of it too is, a lot of times victims are isolated from the people around them that can support them through getting away from them. And if a
Yeah.
person is in domestic violence that feels like they don't have anybody, it's hard to just separate yourself and be on an island, you know what I'm saying? Especially if you have a child and you don't know which way to turn or where to go, right? So that's why there
Right.
is a deep need for more community resources that are able to provide shelter, you know what I'm saying? Able to provide financial assistance, because a lot of it, the aspect too, is finances. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can somebody sustain something from a situation if they take a step away from that and they have all these obligations that they have to meet in regards to allowing them to survive and also providing for a child as well. So, and abusers are aware of that, and that's the reason why I include financial abuse into it, because people don't think of abuse from a financial standpoint, right? But if a
Yes.
man is telling you, listen, you can move in with me, I don't have to, you don't have to worry about any of this, you don't have to pay for any of this, but then 6 months down the road throws it in your face, and you felt comfortable enough to take off, you know what I'm saying, the relief, and have that relief of having to do any of those things.
That's right.
And he's aware of, okay, I established more power. I use this tactic of finances to establish more power and control over this person.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, inside of that, in these relationships, right? And talking about the finances, because I think a lot of things go into finances, right?
Right.
So I think now he's throwing it back in her face or his face.
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to be like, oh, it's not just his face, her face, right?
Yeah.
Now that they've thrown the money back in the face, one of the things I deal with some of the people that I coach, right, in different parts of the world, is how do they then in turn interpret that and become a productive individual in the relationship when they're feeling that I'm just here, and goes back to what you said earlier, as an object, whether
Right.
it's an object to have sex, whether it's an object just to have an arm piece or arm candy or whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
how do we deal with that if finance is one of those things that affect us in domestic violence?
Absolutely. I think everybody's financial agreements in a relationship is pending upon what feels right to them. You know what I'm saying? I think it's important
Mhm.
to have a discussion and have clear expectations of what exists and why. If somebody proposes a certain standard of, oh, you don't got to worry about paying for any of this. You know what I'm saying? Ask questions, try to dig a little bit deeper so you can realize the intention that exists behind that.
Right.
But I think having that balance, in my own personal opinions, I think having a financial balance between both partners is safe sometimes, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because it lessens the opportunity that one person can use that to try to gain that sense of power and control over the other person, you know? But it is a real aspect. And again, everybody's financial situation and agreements in their relationship look different. But it is an important aspect to pay attention to and be aware of. So
No, I agree with it. How is it then? I guess I'll say domestic violence, and not just these, just domestic violence, period, affecting society.
it's affecting society at a grand scheme and at a grand level, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's wow, it's a powerful question because I hear so many situations of people that are experiencing and losing their lives based on an abusive partner. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There was one case that I was reading about the other day, and it's a popular producer out of Atlanta, Georgia. His name is Metro Boomin. He works with like all of the rap artists that are upcoming in Atlanta. And his mom just lost her life. Her boyfriend killed her and then turned the gun on himself and committed suicide. You know what I'm saying? So that was in the news like just a couple of weeks ago. There was
Right.
another instance that happened by Wendy's that I drive by every day like several months ago. You know what I'm saying? So it's happening all around us. And a lot of times we're not open to or understand how to recognize it, which is an important part of it. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're experiencing abuse, it's hard to admit that to the people around you because you don't want to be judged for that. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be looked at differently, or you don't want to be labeled or categorized as that person that's experiencing it, because
Right.
it is to somebody that's experiencing, they can't view it as being embarrassing. But we have to remove the stigma so people can feel more comfortable of revealing when they are, so they can gain that support and access from family members. You know what I'm saying? And the
No, I agree
biggest
with
response that I also want to say to people when if they have somebody that opens up about abuse that they're experiencing, is believe them. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we're quick to say like, oh, this person isn't telling the truth. Oh, they, you know what I'm saying? Even when a rape accusation occurs, like, oh, they
you. Yeah.
must be lying. You know what I'm saying? But what's the harm of actually believing an individual, right? I'm not saying that false accusations out there don't exist. You know what I'm saying? But I'm also saying that if every instance somebody reveals that they're experiencing abuse, that we don't believe them from a community and a societal level, then it sends the message to real people that are experiencing and in those situations to not come out and speak the truth, and then they endure it to a level where it can become lethal for them.
No, that's man, that's it's powerful because I'm trying not to answer the questions before I ask some of the questions, just from my experience.
Yes, sir.
And but to hear you say it and the way you articulate it, even with the part of if you're going through domestic violence, say something.
Yeah.
Well, it's easier said than done. Let me just
Right.
tell.
Right.
Wait, Rashad. Let me talk to the hood. Look, folks, It's a little difficult to let y'all know little Johnny out here whipping my behind. Let me just say, no.
Yep.
Let me catch everybody's attention. It's a little difficult to let y'all know little Johnny whipping my ass. That's difficult, right? I don't want y'all in my business like that. However, it's also destroying your children. You must say something. Shout out to all of the women that's literally going through domestic violence and still holding it together. But ma'am, please, at some point, we got to say something or talk about something. Reach out to all of the hotlines or whatever. We got to do something because we can't keep living this life. Let me say why I say that, Rashad, because the audience don't know this.
Right.
I'm not going to go through all of the details, but listen, I had a cousin, first cousin that was actually killed in that same scenario of domestic violence, right? Beat her up, threw her in the tub, pour gasoline on her, burned her to death, burned the house down, almost killed my cousin, my younger cousin as well, and then walked out. Now, I put those graphics in there for people to realize that just by the grace of God, you may not be in that situation. So, number one, for people that's not in that situation, please stop looking down on somebody that may be going through a difficult time in their relationship. Hell, relationship, if they're dealing with drugs, if somebody went to jail, stop looking down on them like you high on the hog. Just don't do it. I'm sorry, I'm about to digress, but just don't do it, right? So in that story, the reason why I shared that is because I think a lot of times you and I are talking and we physically have seen the results of DV. But some people may not have traffic in that circle or have even witnessed anything, and they're like, oh, they're exaggerating. Listen, when hell comes to your door, it's not going to be a big old boom. It's going to be gradual, soft, and it's going to do everything it can to pull you down. Everything. So please don't do that.
There was one point
Just
that you said, Stanley, too, talking to the parents and women that are
yeah,
experiencing domestic violence and keeping trying to keep the family together. And it's important to know this, and this is a message that I also want to share, is that as much as I can understand a woman wanting the father of the child to be in the child's life or to try to make that relationship work, if there's a dynamic in the household that is unhealthy and the child is experiencing, the child has no idea of what normalcy is. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So you're actually doing that child a hindrance if they're being exposed to those. And again, this isn't saying that it's their blame for it, right? But it's important to allow yourself to be in a healthy relationship, know what your worth is. So therefore, that child has that as a standard, right? Because a lot of times we see it. Kids come from domestic violence households where their parents were domestic violence with each other, and then they end up repeating the cycle of it and committing domestic violence in their own relationships because at a deep level that was what was presented to them as being normal, as what a normal relationship looks like.
Yeah. That's deep. So with that being said, what are some of the, I guess I would say, well, I'll say it a different way. Why is domestic violence so serious? Where did it come from in a sense? How did it develop into this monster that we have now?
I think it came from, to be real with you, it came from patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? It came from the system in which men created. You know what I'm saying? If we go back to understanding the way that we are socialized as men, that our value and our worth comes from how many women we can get, how many cars, how much money. It comes from a culture of establishing dominance over those around us. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And if that is your only sense of being able to show what your true value and your worth is as a person, you're gonna do that within your own relationship. You know what I'm saying? Women are socialized to be able to show their emotions, to be vulnerable, to show love, to nurture, you know what I'm saying, from those aspects. Men are socialized to dominate. You put those two together in a relationship and it's conflicting, you know what I'm saying? And men think that, oh, I gotta be this way. And there's a deep wound a lot of times with men where they made their autonomy or their safety might have been threatened when they were a child, and they're operating from that childhood wound of trying to establish that dominance around other people from that aspect. And it just overall it creates a culture of disbelief, of distrust, of betrayal, of hurt that exists in our communities. You know what I'm saying? And if we can reverse that culture and look at ourselves as men and women, whether we be unhealthy, healthy, whatever it is, and we can address the areas that we need to change within ourselves, I think there will be a cultural shift, right? But we're still navigating it in a space where people are losing their lives. And that, to answer your question, that is one of the biggest tragedies, that people are simply losing their lives out here based on relationships that are supposed to bring them care, nurturance, and love.
But now I got to step a little bit deeper into that, right?
Yeah.
Inside of that, right? Now you talk about relationship and we go into the domestic violence and what, but at some point it had to be taught, right? Because people don't just wake up the next day and just beat somebody up for no reason. It just don't happen, right? What happened to the young little kid that was bouncing around, cheering, smiling, and all of a sudden he wind up being the biggest domestic violence abuser that's out there? So something had to be taught. What are some of those effects, or what happened, or how did it get taught? Like, let me beat this woman up, or let me beat this man up. What happened?
Great question, and I'm glad you asked that. In the curriculum that I utilize and facilitate to work with youth in schools, and in the community, there's a model that I incorporate, and it was developed by the CDC, which is the same organization that we've been hearing from throughout the whole pandemic, right? And they
Right.
created this model. It's called the social ecological model, right? And there's 4 layers that we receive information and gain all of our knowledge from, right? So if you think of them as circles, like you have the bottom circle, it's the individual, right? And we're all an
Okay.
individual as ourselves, right? The circle around that is relationship. So a lot of the relationships, whether that be family, whether that be a partner, brother, sister, mom, dad, there's that relationship circle. The circle beyond that is community. So anything that exists in your community, and then beyond that is society. So mass media, music, television, movies, all of those things, right? We receive messages and normalize violence from all aspects of it, right? So it could be from our familial relationships to what we see at the grocery store, in the community park, at church, you know what I'm saying? At wherever it is in general, we receive those messages and we normalize it. And I think it's important to realize we live in a society, in a country that thrives on violence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and you turn on the news every day, you see a violent act. I think all those messages become embedded in the psyche of us as individuals. And it's not to say that every person is violent, but if you grow up in a culture that promotes these things, right, that shows it, that talks about killings, right, you have people that are going to become agents of that violence and express it because they're dealing with so much inner turmoil.
Mm-hmm. That's deep. So now I gotta ask this question for people that may, let's say somebody do after this podcast, share with somebody, hey, this is going on, or that's going on. What is financial, sexual, physical, right? Psychological, this is what's going on. If they do decide to intervene, what should they be concerned with first?
Also, a great question. And like I said, everybody's situation in domestic violence is different, which
Right.
means everybody's needs on what they need to help uh, um, give them support through it is going to be different. So I would start by saying, if you have somebody in your life that's experiencing domestic violence, I would start by saying, listen, I believe you, right? What do you need? How can I help you? Right? How can I assist you in this way? Right? Because the work, what something that I realized in doing in the victim advocacy work is that it's not about me. I have to tap into and I have to investigate and be curious enough to meet that person where they're at, not judge them for that, and walk with them when they decide to walk. It's not like I'm leading them in a direction that I think is best for them, because people are experts of their own experience at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And I'm nobody to say that you should be here or you should be doing this. You know what I'm saying? I have to ask the question and then be willing, if I'm able to provide those services and that support to that individual. So I would say start there. But if you have somebody that is experiencing domestic violence at a level where you feel like their safety is at risk and their life is at risk, provide a safe place for them to go. Because like I said, if somebody is at the point where they're experiencing physical abuse, especially, and I want to highlight this too, because I did a training on it recently, is a
Yes.
tactic of strangulation, right? And this is a physical aspect of abuse that is very important to pay attention to, because I think it's one of the things that is a direct link to somebody experiencing strangulation or being choked, and then them having the potential of having their life taken. Because if somebody can be willing to put their hands around your neck and restrict your blood flow and airflow to your brain, then they also say that I really don't care about your life. I don't see value in your life, you know?
Right.
And that's an important aspect to pay attention to. But sorry, I digress. I just want to get that point across.
Oh no, you good. You good. You
Yeah,
good.
it's important. It's definitely important to just provide a safe place for them to go to once they decide to leave, because that is usually the moment where somebody will experience death, is because that's the last opportunity that the abuser is going to have power and control over the individual. When they feel like that person is really about to leave them, then they're willing to go to that extremity. So just overall, to put it simple, believing the person, asking them what they need, and then in the event that they need a safe place to go to, providing them a safe place to go to.
Provide. Here's one thing I would say from a police side, and then call the police if need be, right? Now, if it's just y'all two and y'all just talking, that's one thing. But if you have to go to the house or something, listen, don't
Yeah,
try to be superhero.
right,
Don't do that. Call
right.
the police, get
Yeah,
escorted to wherever, get your stuff, and then roll out.
yeah.
Don't try to go there like I'm hard. No, don't do that. You know, get somebody to go with you and stay safe. Go ahead.
And this is another part that I wanted to talk to, and it's interesting because I also want your opinion and your perspective on this, because I know you probably came across it working in the field of the
Yeah.
police force and stuff like that. Is because working as a victim advocate in the shelter, I would notice the need of we need those like residential settings for people to go to, right? Because a lot of times when you think of domestic violence, it's like get the police on the phone, right? And when the police show up, the abuser knows how to stop abusing, right? Or maybe gaslight the person, and the person that's experiencing the abuse may be hysterical, they may be emotional. And as soon as the police leave, is that a safe place for them to still be in with their abuser? I know a lot of times police will come in and tell the person that they have to separate or they have to go somewhere. But if an abuser is aware that their victim or the person that they're committing the abuse against just called the police, I feel like the potential for violence increases tenfold, because now they know that they're reporting them for that act, right? And I always worry that, is calling the police always going to be the remedy in cases where there's immediate need for somebody's safety? I do believe that to be the case, but I also wonder how that plays a role in things sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's two things. Well, obviously we understand the first one, immediate need, right? Somebody choking somebody or shooting at somebody or something like that. We got that part. The hardest thing to deal with domestic violence as a police officer is the victim and the perpetrator, because they have a relationship, right? And at some cases, deep down, as confusing off as it may be to some people, that individual love him or her. So now you have love. Now we can get into what love really is later, but in this, in some ways, they actually love that person. So now, use the scenario we talked about earlier from a monetary standpoint. If she or he came into the house, right, and the perpetrator is the main source of income. Now they had an argument. Sound like the song. Last night we had an argument. Hey, if I
Yeah,
could
yeah,
sing,
yeah.
I'd be dangerous. So they had an argument, right? So now the initial thing is I pick up the phone, call the police. Now the police get there, right? Well, there's no physical anything that's there, nothing. So now you're in a conundrum because you don't know whether to tell him or her to leave, or we just gonna go ahead and go over our business. What I would do is tell them, somebody leaving. Whoever it is, you leaving. Y'all can figure this out a week from now, a month, I don't care. But tonight, somebody's leaving. Now, when that person leaves, to your point, somebody's boiling. Somebody is furious.
Yep.
You leave it, you call the police, now you're putting the police in our business. Like, I didn't even touch you. So now it can escalate to another step, right? From just only from a law enforcement side, and I'm only speaking from my experience, is I would have them separate, but then after the separation and he or she is gone, and then the perpetrator's in the house or vice versa, however they do it. Now, listen, I can't stay here all night. I can't stay here all day. I can't have people just staying here to make sure he or she don't come back. So that's where some of the violence is like, what do you do from there? Now we can give them all kind of tips and, don't do this, don't do that, don't let them back or whatever it may be. But again, you're dealing with love. And behind love, people do some stupid things sometimes. So then the next day, they may come back, or the next week they come back and you see them walking down the street holding hands, and you're like, what in the world? And then guess what happens? Rashad, guess what happened?
What's up?
2 days later, after the Saints play, I'm talking about a real scenario. The Saints played in the not in the Super Bowl. The Saints was playing in a football game. The Saints won, and the guy got drunk, and it was pandemonium in the house. He wanted her to perform in front of his boys because he was sloppy drunk. Well, they left, and I'm sorry, she was a little tipsy. He was a little tipsy. She kept drinking because she was out of her mind. He wanted her to perform, right? She was like, get away from me. Like, I'm going to sleep. Well, what happened next? Everybody left. House was, quiet, locked down. He rapes her, right? He literally rapes her. Now, everybody be like, well, how did he rape her? It was simple. She was intoxicated, drunk, like almost in a stupor, didn't know anything going on. He decided to get his, right? And then she wakes up the next morning, like, clothes gone, and she sees sperm everywhere. She like, did we have sex? I was drunk. So now he got a charge. You know what I mean? So all of that stuff plays in to those decisions. But to answer your question directly, once from a law enforcement side, once we do that separation and the perpetrator gone or the victim, whoever leaves the house, and they're literally gone, we might stay there for another 5-10 minutes. But then after that, what else is there we can do? We can write a report and let everybody know what happened. But there's literally nothing that can be done.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that story. I definitely want to talk to the men out there that feel like they got to get a woman drunk in order to have sex with them.
Man,
you know what I'm saying? A lot of times, if we're going to have a conversation
talk about it,
rape and give consent, then we have to address that. You know what I'm saying? Like the same reason why we take keys out of a person's hand when they're drunk and inebriated, because they can't drive, is because they don't have the proper judgment. You know what I'm saying? And why is that different in sex? Even in a relationship, like and again, people drink in relationships, they have their fun, right? But if somebody's drunk to the point where they're incoherent, you cannot give consent to have sex during that time. And men use that as an opportunity to get somebody drunk so they can have their way with them. And it's rape. You know what I'm saying? We got to call a spade and what it is.
That's right.
The other aspect of the story that you told too is the reasons why somebody abuses, right? And a lot of times people think that it is because of substance abuse or mental health issues. And I'm here to say that that's a fallacy. That's not real. You know what I'm saying? It may increase the potential for somebody to experience domestic violence or abuse, right? But somebody's substance abuse issue is not the reason why they abuse, right? Because if somebody has a substance abuse issue, let's say an addiction to alcohol, right? Or whatever it is, cocaine, right? They always have that addiction, right? They're not abusing their friends, their family. Why are they abusing their partner, right? If somebody has a mental health issue, whether it be bipolar disorder, depression, and whatever it is, right? They always have that mental health issue. You know what I'm saying? They have it around their friends and their family when they're at the bar or at a family cookout, but they only decide to turn on the abuse when they're with their partner. And that's the thing that we need to address and pay attention to. Because a lot of times they think, oh, that's the reason why they're abusive. Abuse is a choice. You know what I'm saying? In the same way that rape is a choice. If somebody decides to do either of those things, they're making a choice to do that. and they're trying to gain power and control over that individual. So thank you for sharing that story, because that definitely stimulated my mind, and I wanted to share that
Yeah,
message.
man. I mean, it's we could probably rap all day. Listen,
Yeah, we can.
listen. I got story after story with the
You already
with the
know.
police
We're gonna have to have a
department.
part two.
Yeah. Oh man, we definitely doing a part something. We
Yep.
what does that relate? We gonna do something. One of the
Yeah.
things I think we should do. I know we on the podcast is domestic violence, so y'all chill out. We this my little brother. We talking now, y'all in our conversation. So,
Yes.
but
You
one of
already
the
know.
things I think we should definitely do a little bit deeper on is the reintegration to people coming out of prison.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of times people don't realize the stress that's there leaving. I've been in this place under these rules for the last 15, 20 years, or 10 years, or 5 years. Now, all of a sudden, I'm leaving my house, because that's what they call it. I'm leaving my house
Right.
to go in a world that I have no idea what it's all about. I don't have 3 square meals a day anymore. I don't care if it's good or bad. I don't have 3 square meals a day, right? I don't know the rules. I don't know rules of engagement. So I think we need to talk about that, man, because I think a lot of times people turn their back on people that went to prison or jail. It could have made a mistake. It could have been their first time they made a mistake. But now their whole life is turned upside down. And as I like to say, there's a few victims in this. It's not just the person that's actually serving the sentence, but if they have any kids, that's a victim. The mother and the father is a victim. The family is a victim. Then you have the person that they committed the act on. That's also other victims and their traumatic experiences through that. So it's not just a one person fit all. It's a whole lot, man. It's a whole lot.
Absolutely. It's a
Because
whole
then you got
lot
to add
too.
into this
Yep.
child support.
Right.
I ain't gonna get
Right.
into that. I ain't gonna touch that. I hate them sons of bitches.
That's it.
I
Yeah.
hate them, but that's another story. I'm sorry, that's another
Yep.
story.
Nah, you're good. But yeah, man, it's powerful. Like, I think a lot of times when we look at the population of people that exist in prisons is usually for nonviolent drug offenses, is the
That's right.
majority of people located in prisons and residing in prisons, right? And you got to step back and ask yourself, why, what was in their circumstances, in their environment, that made them have to decide to sell drugs, right? Because everybody wants to talk about, oh, people could have chose a better path, people could have got employed, you could get a job working here, working there. The way that the system is set up is that there's not enough jobs for everybody. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
The capitalism has created a dog eat dog world out here, and people are aware of that. You know what I'm saying? In communities that don't even have access to that type of being able to make a livable wage or income, America has created this system, you know what I'm saying? And now they're profiting off of locking people up for whether it be they have a drug issue or they're selling drugs to provide for their family, right? Nobody is born and wants to be a drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? Nobody is born and wants to commit a crime or wants to do these things. There are people that, listen, if you're distributing child pornography, if you're out here raping people, you know what I'm saying? There's a place for you, right? But I think
Right.
America has created an issue of mass incarceration. So to address what you're talking about is a lot of people also come from communities where there's a heightened level of unpredictability. People don't know what they're going to wake up to. They don't know how they're going to get their next meal, right? They don't know what time they're going to go to sleep, where it's safe. If they walk on this block, they might get shot. You know what I'm saying? There's a heightened level of unpredictability, and being in a prison system, even though your safety is restricted, I mean, your freedom is restricted, you also have the sense of relief that comes from having a sense of structure, you know what I'm saying? And just
Yeah.
being able to wake up and know that, like you said, you're going to have 3 meals a day, you're going to go to bed and wake up at this time. And as people, naturally, we want a routine. We feel best when we're in a system of discipline. The only issue is that I don't think that that's the necessary system of discipline that should exist for people. But it is hard for an individual to be used to that for so many years, to be wired based on those conditions, and then go into society where everything is moving so fast and they
Right.
need assistance, they need help reintegrating back into our society so they can be productive citizens and know how to operate until they're able to sustain themselves, versus throwing them in to a rat race that's going on around us and expecting them to be able to stay afloat without resorting back to that lifestyle, like I mentioned earlier. So
Absolutely. I tell you what, I got to say this story and then we're going to get out of here because I know I know my email gonna blow up because all these females gonna be looking to see if you single. Don't say it. Do not open your mouth. Don't, no. Anyway, so listen, just real. I gotta. I knew it was gonna get you. So just real talk, right? In that scenario, the one of the greatest conversations I've ever had was with a kingpin.
Yeah. What came about that? Talk to me.
It was simple. I was still naive, trying to understand why are you selling drugs when you can go out and do this, this, and this, right? And he said, really simple. He said, listen, he said, I made a mistake when I was a juvenile, right on that 17, 18 line, right?
Mm-hmm.
It stayed on my record. Because I had a shoplifting felony, because it was whatever the number, let's say it was 5, if it's under 500, then it's not a felony. He's like 580 or something, right? Now he has a felony on his record. Now, you know, people in the hood don't have lawyers. They don't, you know, just who the public defender is. And hey, just plea out to this. You get community service, you go about your business. But what they didn't explain to him is this gonna ride with you the rest of your life.
Exactly.
So now I can't go fill out, you know, job or whatever to be the HR manager for so-and-so. And, you know, no, I can't do that. Only thing I can do is go work at maybe a local fast food restaurant or something like that. And then at the time, it was like $4 or $5 an hour. And he just looked at me and said, detective, what in the world? I'm going to feed my child with $5. And that hit me. Now, most people listen to the podcast, they may be like, oh, well, he still did wrong. Okay, so did the system. Because
so people that's committing, not even to interrupt you, but so is people that's committing white collar crime on a higher level. That is impacting people individually and a societal than somebody selling drugs. You know what I'm saying, on the streets, right, or whatever they is they're doing that's trying to allow them to survive in society. So we got to look at the system, and so many times there's people that get off from Ponzi schemes and all these white collar crimes that at a higher level are way worse than individual people that are just selling drugs in the community.
That's right. So I'll tell you what, this is what we're going to do. First of all, this is what I need you to do. How can the audience get in touch with you? We're going to have another conversation. We're just going to call the next one a conversation, right? Absolutely. Or whatever. But how can the audience get in touch with you to speak so you can go and speak and empower their community, their churches, their mosques, or whatever it may be, to help them begin to understand how real domestic violence is? So how can they get in touch with you, Rashad?
Absolutely. So my email is Rome with Cesar. It's spelled ROMEWITHCZAR @gmail.com. Do you want me to put my personal contact on here, like telephone number?
No, sir. No,
okay,
sir.
all right, yeah. Let me leave that. Let me leave that alone. So I could be best contacted through email. Like I said before, or maybe I didn't mention it, I'm also a photographer. So if anybody needs photography services, I can come through and document your wedding. I do family portraits, stuff like that. My Instagram can be located also with the same tag, Rome with Cesar. That's spelled ROMEWITHCZAR. So those are two methods that somebody could contact me if you need any services, you need public speaking around domestic violence, youth leadership or mentorship, working with young boys and girls and things of that nature. So, yes,
outstanding. Sir. And guess what, y'all? Listen, don't ask him to come for free.
Right.
Pay the man. Pay the man.
All of our times are valuable, and we need to be compensated for it. We only got the time is clicking, you know what I'm saying? The seconds are counting down, and we deserve to be compensated for the work that we do. So I definitely am a big owner to that.
Absolutely. So listen, before we close out, this is something big Rashad, this is something big.
Yes,
You
sir.
ready?
Let's go.
All right. So every guest that I have on the show, I
Mm-hmm.
always give a shout out to my fam back in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
And we do it a certain way.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do it first. Can you do it
Okay.
behind me?
I got you.
You ready?
Let's go. I'm repeating word for word what you say.
No, just listen. It's a sound,
Okay.
all right? It's a
Okay.
sound. You ready?
Bet. Let's go. Let's go.
Wow!
Wow. It's that NO, that NO call.
Yeah.
Hey, I hear it, man.
Listen, y'all have to get at my brother Rashad Perry. Listen, one of the most powerful young men that I know on the planet. Get at
Thank
him,
you.
email him, shoot him up, whatever you have to do to make sure that you connect with him for him to come through and speak. Yeah, listen, he does an amazing job with kids. And I can't get into all that, but just trust me, it is an amazing individual. So book
Yeah,
him. If you can't, oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, youth are our future, man. We need to lead them, and we have to set the example because they're watching us. You know what I'm saying? Day in and day out, and they need mentorship. They need guidance. They need people that will show them the ropes in this life. And like anybody can do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. Again, I take pride in my ability to do so, but everybody's a leader. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can be a mentor. It's just a matter of you embodying that as an example and living that to your true potential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, y'all look at him, get at him, connect with him. If y'all, for whatever reason, cannot remember his email, just get at me. Go to letstalkwithstanleydoucette.com. My email is in the middle of the page. I'm going to give it to you directly now. Also, if you have another podcast that you want me to do with Rashad, listen, we open to it. You know, we open to it. We have a lot of fun when we do these, but we want to make sure we're empowering you overall. So my direct email for the show is let's talk with stanleyd@gmail.com. That's LETSTALKWITHSTANLEY as in David @gmail.com. Get at me, get at me, get at me. Follow us, subscribe, all of those stuff on all of the social media platforms. Go look at our YouTube channel. Y'all gonna see me and Rashad cracking up.
Yeah.
Just
Smiles
go
from
look
ear
at
to ear.
it
All
is
teeth.
worth just looking at. Subscribe, do what we have to do. Get at Rashad. Make sure y'all go to all of the social media platforms. If you need somebody to take some pictures, listen, one of the best to ever do it. So let's do what we have to do and make it happen from there. So Rashad, you know we coming back. We're gonna do a part. I ain't even gonna say a part two. We're just gonna do something else. We're gonna
Yes,
do
sir.
something else.
You know I'm
So with
looking
that
forward
being
to it,
said,
man.
listen, family, I love you guys. I see y'all on the beaches of the world. We're about to go make it do what it do, baby. Y'all know I got the best intro and outro music. So DJ, let's take it away. Let's go. Rashad, appreciate you, brother. Love
Hey,
you much.
appreciate you, Stanley. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Talk with y'all soon, fam. See y'all next week. God bless. Later.